Hello, hello, hello. Sean Brady with another hour where you don't need to be eating lunch, or if you are at any time of day, it's a little break from reality. It's a way to leverage your lunch hour with your thinking and hopefully some direction and insight that may just have a question be pondered in your mind that'll make all the difference. I'm as always with the fabulous Jaleesa Powell in the background. Jaleesa, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Sean?
Fabuloso. I am thought I'd try something out a little bit different because there was a bunch of behavioral finance, different books and science that I was like listening to and reading about, and I'm like, man, let's talk about some of this. And it got on the topic of tipping, and so I started thinking about how what was tipping, like how when I talking tipping, like what gratuity we give to people, right?
Hmm.
And then I started asking Jaleesa, and she's like, "Oh, the normal, right?"
Right.
And what'd you say your
Okay.
normal was, Jaleesa?
I said, well, I truthfully, I think normal is somewhere between 15 and 20, but I specifically always stay in the 18 to 20 range whenever I tip or give like gratuity. If the
Wow,
service,
generous. I wish I had you. I wish I was a server and had
I
you.
know when you see me walk in
And
there.
you even mentioned sometimes you even give a little bit more.
Yep, and a little bit more on top of that. Yeah, I like good service. But I also said that I usually don't eat a lot of expensive things. They're moderately, pretty modest on like spending when I go out to eat. Um,
So what about the if you go to a coffee shop and they have a little tip jar there, you know how it is.
oh, if I pay in cash, I usually always give my change. But I
You,
don't do
you
that.
always give your change, right? Do you give a little
Yeah.
more than your change sometimes?
No, I
No.
won't give not
No.
more than my
See, we got started fast and hard set rules on what we do and don't do with our tipping,
And my change is usually not that much anyway to begin with because I don't carry cash as much. But
right?
but yeah, when I do have change, hey, yeah, like give some change.
Now, do when you swipe, right? So let's say you go to a coffee shop of your choice and you swipe your card, right? Whether it be debit or credit, do
Hmm.
you round up that change or do you add a little bit more, like a 10, 15, 20%? I know that all of them have those type of signs now.
Yeah, so at a coffee shop, I don't think of it as much of like a restaurant situation where someone is actually serving you, but they are serving you. So
Right.
I probably with that mindset, I probably should, but I usually don't. And but if there is some type of special service that comes with it, like they either bring it to the table, then I usually tip.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the accuracy of this because I haven't done a deep dive on it, but for some of the things I heard, do you know where tipping in the United States really came from?
No.
So it's always in many cultures around the globe, it's tipping isn't included, right? Or I should say, tipping is not expected,
Got you. Wow.
right? I know, and it's been that way for a long time. Now, if there's something over and above, I think there's always. I know when I worked in an Irish pub in Chicago, the owner was from Ireland, and a proper tip for good service was 15%. It wasn't expected though. And the other thing that was not expected is that the people would be paid enough so that they would be at least getting there might not be a minimum wage
Right.
per se like we have today,
Yeah.
but we know that as servers in American society, let's say the minimum wage is, I don't know, we can make up a number. Let's say it's $10 across the board across the country, which is not true, right? I don't want to get in that discussion, but let's say it is $10 an hour, and restaurants don't have to pay that because they're actually supplemented by tips or gratuities that people get to be
Mhm. Correct.
over that $10 an hour amount or whatever the minimum wage is in that area of the country.
Correct.
Um, and again, I haven't teased this out, but that was actually it actually went back to a transition when slavery was abolished, and a
Mm.
lot of these services where people were being served was it wasn't extra pay to the owners of the establishments.
What? Yo, wow.
Right. And
Mhm.
then so it's like, well, okay, we have to pay people something. And this might even been before minimum wage or things like that. But then it was
Wow.
expected. It's like, oh well, let's add a tip on top of this, especially for good service. Oh my gosh, I've been getting service all this time, and now people have to make a living,
Mhm.
right? So how do we do that? So that's somewhere in there was the inklings of American tipping, uh, and then it just kind of went in different cultural things. Like so, you had mentioned 18 to 20%. I'm like, what are you from Chicago? Right? And it's like
Yeah.
I know traditionally growing up around the country, it's like whoa. It better be. It's like I never give more than 15%,
Right.
right? I think
Exactly.
I remember commercials about this when I was a kid.
Yep.
It's like 20%, right? It's a big tipper right there. And
Right.
it is if you think about it. So it's interesting to see how cultural norms and influences just kind of shape our automatic behavior on things. So it's like, hey, yeah, 18 to 20%. And,
Right.
you may or may not have friends who are servers. I was certainly a server.
Yeah.
And, did a little bartending, did a little, a lot more serving,
Yeah.
and tips were the majority of this. I think I got paid $2 an hour
Yeah,
when minimum
exactly.
wage at the time was, like 7.50 or something. I don't remember. It was so long ago. I never even figured out what minimum wage was. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it was like, whoa, I better be making a lot of tips. And, it's worked out to, a little bit better than minimum wage, whatever that
Yeah.
was.
That's
But
usually how it goes. Yeah.
right.
It usually
Isn't
works out
that
good.
crazy?
Yeah. My sister was a server and what is it called? Like at the door, like what is it? The people that wait at the door
Well,
that
there's the coat check, and then there's also the host or
host. I think
hostess.
she was hosting. She hosted and she also was a server. So with both of
Aha.
them, like even with the host, like they sometimes take a percentage of the earnings that the servers make too, just to compensate. So
Right.
it's a really interesting dynamic that
Or
happens.
even like I know at the when I worked at a kind of a nice restaurant,
Hmm.
they had the servers in the restaurant would tip out the bartenders because the bartenders would have to make the drinks that they brought to them. So a portion of their
Mm.
tips would always go to the bartender,
Oh,
even
wow.
if they didn't serve them. Like just a
Wow.
portion, like 10% was there, and then I think for the bus boys and the bus girls, right,
Oh, yeah.
clearing the tables, a percentage of that went to them because nobody's necessarily going to giving me a direct tip, although I
Correct.
got that once and that was kind of cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, wow, you know,
Feel
that's
really
kind of cool,
good.
right?
Right.
So I know there was an acronym that always went around for tip. Like, do we know where a tip came from?
No, like the origin of the word?
Yeah.
No.
Well, the way I best learned it, and typically it means like a gratuity or something like that. But uh, a tip, the best way to get it, and this was true for me, and the acronym is TIP, to ensure promptness.
Mm.
So if you're ensuring promptness, do you pay for insurance ahead of time or after the fact?
Ahead of time.
Yes. Right. And so I remember this as I don't know, I had to be a young teenager, certainly driving age, but uh, somebody slipped me a $5 bill
Oh, wow.
before they even ordered their food. They had ordered drinks, and I brought over an ice bucket with wine. I know it was like a high rolling place, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
$5. That was the first time I got $5
Oh, yeah. It
in
was
my hand, cash from somebody. I'm like, we're taking care of this dude.
exactly. It's
This is a
such a common.
high roller,
Yep. Yep.
right? And
Exactly.
so, it's like, hey, telling the waitress, and it's like, hey, it's like, what? I was like, whoa, okay. So all of a sudden, there was this like little flurry of activity around this table of three people, this little booth, right?
Hmm.
And I don't remember what it was after the fact, but I remember getting this like, whoa, I was really prompt and attentive to that table.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most of the time in today's, especially, it doesn't make a difference because we were talking about the swipe. We can add our 10, 15, 20% custom tip, if you will, at a
Right.
coffee shop. do we do it there? Is it actually providing us anything for that extra money?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
if not, should we be paying for that as consumers, or should that be provided by the establishment? Because
exactly.
it already seems like the cost is pretty high, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think things are changing as far as the way servers and hosts get paid. I think it's still, or bartenders, I think it's still relatively low. So
Yeah.
someone has to compensate for it.
Now I do know that one of the higher end restaurants, 3 Michelin stars multiple times in Chicago, #1 restaurant in the world,
Oh, wow.
multiple times, right? Called Alenia. I think their whole restaurant group doesn't allow tipping.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's also a higher end restaurant where, the per plate average is excess of $300 per person,
Right.
plus wine,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Right. They're
whoa.
doing pretty well.
Now, but if you think about it, the amount of money it takes to cover the staff costs is
Hmm.
really high. Now, they're able to do it a little easier with that. But could you imagine going into a diner
Hmm.
or a breakfast restaurant or a lunch restaurant that's
Yeah.
not necessarily open at night?
Mm-mm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Mm-mm. It's not gonna work.
No. How much would you really want to pay for your lunch or breakfast?
Yeah, exactly.
Not no $300, not no
Not
$100, not
$300
even
for
50
sure.
bucks, right? Maybe 50 bucks for a table of 6,
Correct. Correct.
right? Then
Yeah,
it's okay. But that's not going to cover the service part of it.
correct.
So the whole point in putting tipping out there, behavioral influence and our cultural influence and our money thinking, is it's like, whoa, where do we get these behaviors?
Yeah.
And going back to the whole idea of personal finance being personal, is this is an opportunity for us to have our dollars work in our favor that aligns with our goals, our values, the
Hmm.
things that we feel and deem right in the world.
Hmm.
Have you ever thought about that before?
Oh, it's empowering.
I know it is, isn't it? You are actually controlling instantly how you tell your money to work for you.
I feel like a boss now.
You are a boss.
Definitely.
And
Everyone.
you're a boss you're like a general. And each one of those dollars that you control is a soldier, and you get to
Ex-
tell those soldiers what to do every day.
Correct. This is very true.
So now I'm going to ask you another question. You might even see the writing on the wall. You see it coming, right?
Oh, go ahead.
Are you telling your soldiers what to do?
I do. My
Do you
soul,
like what your soldiers are doing for you?
I think they could do a little more,
They
but
could do a little more.
they could do a little more.
A little
But
bit, a little bit.
they're good. They're doing pretty well.
Good. Now, what would you like them to do a little more for you?
I would like them to lead to more, well, I'd like them to generate more income. That'd be one thing. But
Right?
then another thing would be to, let's see. Well, we would call it dollars, but I also feel like just having being more empowered about how you're spending and knowing how, like being intentional about the choices that you're making when you spend. I feel like that's more
Mm,
like my job, but I could direct my soldiers a little better in that regard.
yeah. And so pick one thing. We don't have to pick everything in your whole life, but pick one thing. What would be one thing that you would like to
So when
control a little better?
so when you said tipping, it just made me think of just the ways that we are empowered when we spend our money and just
Yeah.
educating ourselves on the like how it circulates throughout the society. So that's interesting to me. I'm interested in learning more things like that too, and just
Yeah.
seeing how I can participate better,
Yes.
in a better society.
Well, I know, one of the practices I've been implementing is like, I kind of start at the tipping point of the tipping point. No, it's
The
funny.
tipping point.
About a
Book,
15%
right?
gratuity, depending on what it is,
Right.
right? Because if it's breakfast or lunch, well, the time that we're there is the same amount of time.
Right.
It's going to be about an hour, maybe a little bit over, right?
Correct.
But the cost differential in the price that we pay for breakfast or lunch is going to be a lot lower than dinner,
Correct.
right? So I know that I'm gonna probably pay a little bit more for my wife and I to go out for dinner. And granted, we might have a bottle of wine or something like that, or certainly a drink,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we each have a drink and a meal
Mm-hmm.
at dinner, that's going to be more. That's going to cost more for the same time amount that it would be to take our family of six out to even McDonald's or
Right.
even a sit down restaurant where we get a little nicer lunch, right? With
Correct.
table service.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to be less.
It's still
And we're
gonna-
still the same amount of time.
Mhm.
So should it be more or less for the server's time?
No, and that's so many different factors. Because
I know.
technology changes everything. Then
It
it's just
does.
depending on what type of service you value. Do you value someone bringing something to the table for you, or do you value more of the quality that the food is coming out as, or like where are you where are you placing your value that affects the way that you tip? And then
Right.
like Chili's, I think it's Chili's.
Mhm.
You can order from your table on the like a small iPad that's on your table, and you really don't have contact with your server like that. You can also pay
Right.
there too.
Right. And
Yeah.
so are we paying? So if that's the case, and they're really just bringing us our food,
Yeah.
do we?
Do you
It's like how do we tip the delivery person for pizza or Asian food or
correct.
whatever,
Correct.
right?
I
Or
say that a lot.
and then but think about this. Do we tip the person when we go pick up our food?
Right. I don't know. Especially now. Are we being generous now because of the times too?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't
So
know.
all of these things go to our behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that those behaviors in behavioral finance. Now, a lot of times, as with any type of behavioral finance, where we get into trouble as human beings is not having a preset plan in what to do, or we let our emotions or non-planned things rule the day. It's like, oh yeah, this feels good. I'm gonna do that.
Like a shot in the dark.
Right? Yeah, this feels good. Yeah, 20% all the time, 20% all day.
All the
Right?
time.
Oh, I'd like. They were so nice. They found my name. They used my name. They were so nice.
Right.
Right?
Not being empowered with your money. Yeah.
Right. So, it's always about our behaviors and how we interact with things and what's our set plan going into it. And that's what I've been learning.
Are
Like
you learning this in your course that you're taking, or are you learning this from a book that you're reading?
No, this is so there's been a couple of books on behavioral finance, and I'll post the author who really started writing about it and actually won a Nobel Prize, I believe, or something like that for his study into this. And it's dumb. I think it was like something. It was either the article or the book he originally wrote was dumb things people do. Right. And I think it was dumb things people do with their money. Right. And then there was all these other people who kind of followed suit. It's like, oh yeah, let's look into this behavioral finance a little bit more. And typically when people are buying into a stock market, well, we know you buy low and sell high.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But what do most people do? Statistically speaking, they like to say that they do that,
but they do the opposite.
They do the opposite. Mm-hmm. So most people will buy high and sell when it's going down or low.
Right.
For fear of missing out. They want to get the stock in. So, what's a hot stock that you heard about right now? You don't even have to play the stock market. What's some hot company that you think their stock is up right now?
Well, I was going to say Tesla, but I don't think their stock is up currently at this exact moment.
Right. So, but statistically speaking, it is.
It is.
If you're going to pull apart the valuation of the company, it's still like ridiculous, 100 times earnings or something like that.
Yeah.
Amazon's another one.
Yeah.
Yet we look at other companies that are going to have predictive cash flow. It's like, well, no, we'll just do 10 to 15 times earnings. It's still pretty good. 20 times
They're pretty
earnings,
good. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But oh, then some of these other companies, oh no, 10 times earnings. Oh, it's a terrible company. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
Although 10 times earning is kind of another tipping point, another play on words, but right. But again, it's all telling your dollars what to do for you and knowing it's like, all right, what are my rules around money? What will I look at? What will I not look at? And because it's all personal.
It is. So
it's personal for me. It's personal for you. It's personal. Everybody watching this show.
Absolutely. So as you change your behavior, you'll see the effects happen in your money. It's your spending in your.
Absolutely. More so, you may or may not see a change in your money, but you'll know the result of what you're doing and be more conscious of what you're doing with your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the bigger thing. Because right now it's like what was the other study? We forget that at one point in time, not too long ago, about 14 years ago, gas was up there. It was like above $3 a gallon.
It was so expensive. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. It got up
right?
to 4 at one point.
And then, so you would think that it's a direct impact if people are driving the same amount every week, which most people were, right? You're going to work, you're going to pick up the kids, you go to the grocery store, whatever your gas cost is, you're filling up the same time a month, either weekly or every couple of weeks. But what they found from studies is that even when gas went down, I think it almost got up to $4 a gallon in most across the country.
Mm-hmm.
But when it went back down closer to 2, do you think people saved that money?
No, they were filling up their tank still.
They're still filling up their tank, but that's just the volume. Mm-hmm. But now their cost of filling up the tank is almost half.
Yeah.
So what did they do with the half?
Go spend it on something else that they want to buy.
Right. Most people, they found what went up. It wasn't people saving money.
Correct. It was spending habits, probably shopping or something else like that.
Sort of. They would still spend money in the same place at the gas station, not necessarily going into
extra snacks.
Maybe not. But what they did do is instead of buying regular unleaded, all of a sudden they're buying more premium unleaded.
Oh, wow.
Even if their car doesn't run any more efficiently on it.
Wow.
And, right now it's 40-cent differential a gallon, at least where we're at. 30 to 40. Sometimes it's even more.
Sometimes even more. Yeah.
So I've heard a 60-cent differential per gallon.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, that's one of those ingrained behaviors. It's like, oh, well, we're paying less. I might as well get the better stuff.
Exactly.
Even if it's not better.
Right. Or what's relatively less. Like it's not as expensive as, it was then, but it was just really expensive then.
Or this is fun one, the value of found money. Right?
Yeah.
You're walking along the street, it's like, hey, you're walking into Medici one day and there's a $20 bill blowing around. What's the value of that $20 bill now? Especially when you're getting hungry for lunch.
Yes, it's the exercise that you have to do to catch it.
Right? Exactly. So now you caught it. It was an easy blooper to give me, if you will. Right? You stepped practically right on it. There it is. It's like free $20.
That's always a great feeling.
Right? And what's the value of that $20 though?
What you would have planned on spending.
What would it be? Or it's like, oh, because what most people do is like, oh, it's found money. Be a little more frivolous with it. Maybe even be more generous with it. Oh, I can give it to a charity. I can do this. I can do that. I can treat me and Alex for lunch.
Right. Exactly.
Don't worry about it. I found it.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. I found it.
Right. Exactly. Let alone it's like, oh, it took me this long to work for this money, especially after tax.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like, oh. So it's just noticing our behaviors and how we interact with not just our money, but certainly our money.
Our money, how it comes, I guess, even too now, how it comes, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. It matters.
Yes. So tipping, it all goes back to tipping. So think about that, because if we notice one behavior, especially around our money, we begin to notice more.
That's true. Wow. You really opened my eyes with that one. I didn't know where you were going with tipping, but I was like, hey, this is actually really interesting.
I know. That's what we do.
And
Well, that's kind of how my coaching works, right?
hmm
It doesn't seem like it might make any sense until it does.
Yep, until it does. And then you can't unsee it.
And you can't unsee it. Once you see the baby's getting thrown out with the bathwater, you go, oh my God, that's some crazy stuff.
Exactly.
All right. So, is there anything else on your mind in your business and your life?
No, not right now. Not today.
Well, then I just want to express my gratitude for always being a fun participant,
Oh, thank
an
you.
inconsequential participant in Leverage Your Lunch Hour, right? Because you never know what's coming.
Yes, it's always fun.
It's always fun. And just a big shout out to Medici, where Jaleesa is at. She's our media coordinator, does a fabulous job. And she helps run this show, right? She provides a platform so that I'm making sure my bumpers are working the right way, that my Zoom is working and getting posted to other areas of the website. And that's just one of the many services that Medici offers. Correct?
Correct.
So I always love to end these things with a big shout out of gratitude, of course, but then also this simple phrase: get ready for the bumper. We may not see you in person, but we're always going to see you right here on social media. Thanks for watching and sharing and just being more you.